All right, I see folks are joining us. Got some more people. Let me just get them into the session and then we'll kick it off. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, here we go. All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for Tipping Point. Again, if this is one of the session, if you've been on other sessions with us so far these last 2 days, or welcome to your first Tipping Point session. Tipping Point is Connecticut's first affordable housing conference series. My name is Chelsea Ross. I'm Deputy Director here at the Partnership for Strong Communities. And throughout this week, the partnership is hosting over 30 sessions featuring local, state, and national experts leading conversations that explore challenges, share best practices, and coalesce us around critical next steps to address key affordable housing issues in our state. You can join the conversation about Tipping Point at #TippingPoint2020 on Twitter and follow us at PSC Housing if you aren't already. This session is titled, Can You Build It? Yes, You Can, Resident-Led Affordable Housing in Rural and Suburban Communities. We'll hear from LISC Program Officer Matt Straub about Housing Connections, a technical assistance program which assists municipal leaders in building affordable housing in both suburban and rural communities. And before I turn it over to Matt, I'd like to thank our leading sponsors, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority and the Melville Charitable Trust. Their substantial support has allowed this conference series to exist. Thank you also to our collaborating sponsor, the Connecticut Department of Housing, and to our supporting sponsors, Housing Enterprises, Inc. and Whittlesey. A few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and we'll make all recordings available to conference attendees as soon as possible. So you'll receive notification of that via email. All participants have entered muted. Please remain on mute unless the presenter asks you to unmute. If you have a technology issue, please select the chat icon in the Zoom control panel and send it in the chat to me. I think I'm on here as PSC Zoom Meetings 2. AKA Chelsea, and I'll do my best to assist you. I'm not a tech expert, but I've been through a couple of these sessions so far. Matt will let you know how he would like content questions to be submitted, either via chat or otherwise. In a few minutes before the end of the session, I'll launch a poll that asks you for feedback on the session. Please take a minute to share and help us improve future webinar and conference offerings. Lastly, Partnership for Strong Communities is working to better understand the needs of our communities and affordable housing partners. We really want to learn from you. Toward the end of the session, I'll be sharing a link to a survey in the chat. You'll get this via email as well at the end of the conference. Please take a few minutes after this session or at your convenience to share your feedback and shape both the issues we work on and the ways that we work. So I'll now turn it over to Matt to get us started. Let me stop sharing screen. And that should be all yours, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Chelsea. First, I want to start off and really say thank you to Chelsea and to the partnership. Putting this event together seems like it was a truly Herculean effort, 4 days and just the volume of presentations that we have and the new kinds of content we're seeing. So it's a really great event. And thank you so much for putting it together. My name is Matt Straub. I am a program officer at LISC, the Local Initiative Support Corporation. LISC is a 501c3 community development finance institution, which I frequently liken to a nonprofit bank. So we offer lending, capacity building, as well as grant making support for the development of affordable housing throughout Connecticut, as well as family income and wealth building and a number of other kinds of initiatives. I'm here today to talk about our Housing Connections Rural Suburban Technical Assistance Program. This program is funded by the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority. I do see Terry Giovannucci is here on the call. Thank you for all of your support for this program. It's been a huge lifeline to help support the development of rural and suburban affordable housing. So the nature of this program is that LISC, through this partnership, is able to offer technical assistance to help groups facilitate the development of affordable housing in their communities, with the goal of locally driven, high quality affordable housing developments. The idea is that we are helping facilitate some grassroots energy and capacity for you to take on the development and ownership of housing in your own community. So we do so based on the model that people in their community really understand the local assets and the needs in their own communities. So we help create organizations who have the capacity to really develop these things as an asset for their own towns. So this makes the model look a little bit more formalized than it actually is. We're not doing necessarily assessments and assignments, but the idea is that there's really three kinds of pots of technical assistance that we can offer. We can offer policy and planning, as well as some organizational and project development. This program typically, though not always, works on a referral basis. We do some proactive outreach, we really do work on events like these. So helping people become aware of our programming and then they reach out to us, and then we help facilitate their own development. This isn't something where we're trying to necessarily push something in your community, but help you do it yourself and help us, or we can help you kind of realize your dreams and what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So the first kind of bucket, so to speak, of technical assistance is policy and planning. So we frequently will work directly with communities or with groups that are aligned with communities to help identify need. So we can help quantify needs, help identify what some of the barriers might be in your communities, things that might, like land use, like zoning, that might make it difficult for the development of housing in your community. We can certainly help with surveys. We have templates for things like that to help you reach out to your residents and see what it is that's necessary. We also do help with the actual creation of organizations. So when you've kind of assembled a group of volunteers, for example, that may be looking to develop affordable housing, we help you create an organization to do that. So help you incorporate as an entity. So we've got things like articles of incorporation and other kinds of organizational documents that you need to help create an organization. We can also set you up with different processes by which you can incorporate as a 501c3. These kinds of things can help kind of set the stage for the development of an affordable housing project in your town. It's kind of assigning and establishing what your goals are so that you're moving forward in compliance with those goals. And then once the organization is in place, we can help you identify the next steps to move forward. So identifying what kinds of affordability you might need, what sites may or may not work for you, and then help you identify some of the professional services that you'll require in order to move forward. Things like housing development consultants, architects, contractors, things like that, so that groups really don't need to have a lot of these capacities on their own. We don't expect that people are coming in knowing how to be real estate developers. They know their towns and they know their needs, and then we can help connect you with some of the more technical the real kind of nuts and bolts technical assistance you'll need to move forward. So through this program, we've offered technical assistance to more than half of eligible communities in Connecticut. So just over 150 are eligible. This is a rural and suburban program. We have facilitated the development of over 600 units of affordable housing in rural and suburban communities. Those are typically in small projects, as small as 1 unit. Typically projects are below 10 units. That we're not asking people to come in and develop 50 units of affordable housing in a small town. We understand that as a small group, you know your community and you know what's best. And we have leveraged the development of over $115 million of housing development in towns. And even in light of COVID, things are still moving forward. We're working with a number of groups statewide with over 500 units that groups are looking to develop moving forward. So this is the map. This is every community that we've worked in the different kinds of capacities that we can do so. So, as you can see, we've really been active throughout the state, particularly emphasis on the communities that have stars in them. Those are communities where projects have been developed and we currently have low and moderate income residents who are living. So this really was designed to be a very brief presentation followed by questions and answers. I don't want to sit and talk at you for too long, so I'm happy to take questions. Please either through the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. Let's talk. It's so weird with everyone's cameras off.
Yeah, and I think folks, I can ask them to unmute, but they can raise their hand or turn on their camera. And I think I see Sheila. Let's see if we can ask Sheila to unmute there.
Kirsten, I do see your message. We'll be sending out a fact sheet to everyone who RSVP'd after the end of the presentation. That'll have my contact information on it.
I just changed it so people can unmute themselves. So you're entering that world, Matt, where people can just unmute willy-nilly. So
That's
here we
fine.
go.
I'm
That's what we're
here for
doing.
You asked for it. Just a quick question. Does your organization come to local interest in becoming part of panels?
Oh, we'd be happy to. Unfortunately, right now, in light of COVID, I believe we're still restricted from attending in-person meetings, but if you're hosting meetings via Zoom or something like that, I'd be happy to accept an invitation and talk about this further with your group.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a member of the Affordable Housing Committee in Fairfield. So we were attempting to do that last year. We were moving towards that goal, and then COVID hit. So, but thank you. I will make a note. I got a long list of notes. I'm going to contact people. So I'll ask you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So we'll be shooting. My email address and phone number will be on the information that I'll send out after the call.
Thanks, Sheila. I see Felicia and Kirsten. Maybe Felicia first and then Kirsten.
Hey, Felicia. You're on mute.
I'm trying to unmute. It says my, there it goes.
You're good. You're good.
All right, thank you. I actually didn't have a question, but I will ask one anyway. So first of all, we were very fortunate to come across GLISC. I think probably Jocelyn Ayer at the COG introduced us a number of years ago, and you guys gave us our first funding to get an organization started. So we became the Falls Village Housing Trust. That started through a LISC grant and also some incentive housing zone funding. And we just got our P&Z approval for our first project. It's been a long haul. We had some opposition in town that you made us jump through a few hoops. We had to cut the project from 28 to 16 units, but we did so in the spirit of compromise and moved it back a bit from the street and a few things like that. Of course, the people that were opposing it continue to oppose it. One of the struggles we're having right now is we are going to be applying for a bunch of money. We need like $3.3 million to build it now. And with the current state of affairs in the state, nobody knows when funding will be released. We're told we're pretty much at the top of the list because we've received 2 small funding batches totaling 180,000, and we've made good on that. We have our architectural plans, we have our engineering plans, and now we have our P&Z approval. We're ready to build. It's this gap between getting the large funding, which could be months, it could be a year, and we want to do some smaller things like well testing, which is 20,000, and we still have to pay for our directors and operators insurance. I pay a monthly fee for a website that we develop so that we can answer questions to the community. So it's this period that we're feeling a little stress, and we're certainly all the board members are contributing, but a couple of our board members have lost jobs during COVID, and it's just a tough time. So I'm curious about, and of course we're going to knock on List's door again, and we also, looks like we're going to get a little shot from some funding in our town. But is it possible for somebody to lobby with the Department of Housing and, you know, have them work with us in a way that makes it just a little easier? I mean, we're pretty dedicated volunteers, but, you know, it feels like we're always just walking uphill trying to get the Department of Housing to work with us on releasing money that they have allocated for affordable housing.
You know, as you know, it's been a tough time for funding for affordable housing over the past couple of years, and I don't think that COVID has made that easier. That certainly is, you know, that we hear it. We'll certainly, in our conversations with the department, you know, make that point clear also, that it is a need that you guys are seeing.
Yeah, I mean, the promise of funding is hopeful, but it's not an absolute promise. It's kind of like, well, we think you're going to get funding if we don't need to take it back for something else. So it's this uncertain period, and it's you know, we have to work hard to keep our volunteers motivated, and you know, so that's it. I just feel like that we had a bit more clear-cut process with the Department of Housing, and that we could count on some, you know, reliable time frame.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think anyone from DOH is on the call right now, from what I can tell, but that's heard. It's heard loud and clear.
So Matt, along similar lines, talking about finances, especially for smaller projects as the Housing Connections program typically creates, can you speak a little bit about strategies to, you know, funding sometimes smaller projects that might be more challenging to fund than larger ones?
Sure. So what we see a lot of groups have been able to do is, at least to start, can look to donations, obviously, for things like land, even, you know, working with communities for donated land, working with someone who maybe is part of the state donating a single home to renovate. Typically for permanent funding sources, we tend to see that the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority and the Department of Housing are the largest funders of these kinds of projects. The Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston has also been a large supporter of projects through their local bank partners. But it is absolutely true that a lot of subsidy is necessary to make these projects work. Kirsten.
Sorry, I just received permission to unmute. Hey, folks, I'm from Simsbury, so I did see that our town is on the map, and I'm part of a recently formed grassroots organization that is looking at encouraging affordable housing within our community. And how do we do that without stepping on the toes of our planning and zoning commissions?
So I think that the planning and zoning commissions are a great partner for you, right? That there's, you know, I'm not sure what the zoning currently looks like in your community. If there is zoning that would allow for the kinds of development that you're looking to do, I don't know if you're looking at multifamily or affordable home ownership. But I think that really you need to be looking to them as a partner as you move forward, particularly if the zoning is not currently in place, that you can kind of work collaboratively with them to help meet an identified need. And I'm certainly happy to discuss this with you further if you'd like to reach out.
I will reach out. That sounds great. Thank you.
Great. All right, so there's quite a bit here in the chat. Should I read these out loud? What's the best way to do this?
I think we've gone through a couple of them that are in here. Someone did ask about lending options that are available to purchasers of smaller housing units, such as apartments, condos, or tiny homes, and whether or not that is something related to, you know, Housing Connections as a path forward for sustainable both home ownership as well as preserving affordable housing in communities.
Sure. So we don't, I say I don't know a whole lot about CHFA mortgages. I do believe that they have programs available for the purchase of single family homes, multifamily homes of up to 4 units, and condominiums through their lending partners. So those, I think, are really the ones they're the ones to reach out to there. I know they also have a down payment assistance program that allows you to borrow at the same rate to help cover some of the down payment. if you're a qualified home buyer, and they really are the ones to speak to as far as that kind of financing.
We had another question in the chat that was somewhat related to Kirsten's question about working with towns. So do you have any examples of groups that Housing Connections has worked with who have partnered in some way? Either they had someone on their local board who is from the town, or had a partnership to be able to create an affordable housing development that was in sync with what the community was moving towards?
Sure. So I can say kind of the group I was working with most recently, the Barkhamsted Housing Trust. They're a group from the town of Barkhamsted up in Litchfield County. They originally reached out to us through the community themselves. And then, prior to my involvement, did create a nonprofit group to support affordable housing. Their board includes both the town planner as well as the chair of their Planning and Zoning Commission. And the first selectman and another one of the town selectmen are our kind of informal advisors to the group. They're not on the board, but they do attend meetings. We worked with them to help support the purchase of an unused former farm, and they're hoping to develop 20 units of affordable housing in an incentive housing zone. So that was, the incentive housing zone was created with the support of the Department of Housing. So there's a lot of different support from different angles that really allowed this group to build some consensus and to build some momentum in their community.
Matt, you mentioned earlier about how Housing Connections is trying to provide that technical assistance and support to community residents who maybe don't come to the table with a background in real estate or housing finance or planning or all these different areas, but they are really committed to ensuring their community is home to a variety of individuals at a variety of income levels. So how do you work with groups then who are thinking to themselves, well, how can we get started? We don't have those skill sets. We don't know the first thing about property management. What do you tell those groups?
Sure. So the expectation is that that's going to be the case. We're not expecting the groups are coming in, ready to get out there and oversee construction right away. So part of the model is that we help kind of educate about the process itself. Ideally, you're looking for a diversity of experiences on your board. So people who may come from different backgrounds, people who may bring other competencies to the board. Something, if you've got someone who's got a legal or a financial background that can kind of help with some of the initial organizational administration, we find very useful. And we help kind of identify what some of the other gaps are to help build your understanding of the process. When you've reached kind of a point, we can help do a request for proposals for a development consultant, and that's the kind of person who really would be kind of overseeing the nuts and bolts of the development itself.
And what would you say are some of the most common challenges that resident-led groups have encountered?
Certainly, community opposition can be real. And that's really what a lot of these volunteer boards bring to the table, right? Your community, your elected officials, your neighbors that you see at the grocery store, at a soccer game, and that's kind of one of the things that groups bring. And it's not always the case that at the first try there you may have community support. And that's kind of one of the things you bring. Funding is a perennial issue. There's a lot of need, and there's never enough money to fund every really important and necessary project. But that is always a problem, and that's something that we're looking to increase the amount of funding that's available for projects. And those are really the kind of the two big issues. Everyone's got some unique needs in their community, but those are kind of the really broad ones. Sorry, my dog is barking.
That's okay, Matt. I think that's number 73 of dogs we've heard on this conference so far. So don't worry about that at all.
We have no more questions in the chat function. We have about 5 minutes left. maybe Matt, I'll ask for you to, can you share like kind of a mini case study, so to speak, of a group that we've worked with maybe in the past year or two, and that has been able to see a project to completion, just to give an example that it certainly is possible for residents to come together and build affordable housing in their community.
Sure. There's a great group in North Haven, North Haven Opportunities for Affordable Housing. They purchased a piece of land on Clintonville Road and developed 8 units of affordable housing. So it's there in, I believe, 4 buildings. It's 4 kind of side-by-side duplexes. And fully, they had a ribbon cutting in, was it last November? So just before COVID, when we were allowed to have things like ribbon cuttings. And it's fully occupied. It's, you know, it's a sustainable part of their community that they're able to serve low-income residents on a long-term basis. They're, you know, it's a great project and a great group.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much to Matt and Casey for all this great information. I think you're going to have some new emails in your email box, Matt. So get ready for that. I posted in the chat feature for folks the next 2 sessions. Next one is a Green and Healthy Homes Initiative update, and to hear a little bit about the impact of housing revitalization projects at 3:30. And we have more sessions for you Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week, so stay tuned. We also have a survey in there, and I'm going to pop up a poll right now for you to give us some feedback on this session. So before you close out for today, do us a favor and provide some of that input, and we hope we see you on a session soon. Take care, everybody.